Hi, Peru. Nice to have you here with us today.
Good evening, Toby. Good evening, Tol. Thank you very much for that nice introduction. Well done. Well done. I feel
Yes,
honored to be here. Thanks a lot for the invitation as well, Toby.
yes, and we are very happy to have you. So, just on a lighter note, you said you like mountain biking and you also like flying. How can we kickstart that, knowing that we have a whole lot of work to do on the field and probably in school for those who are in school, following after your footsteps?
Just say again, how can you?
How can we balance our time and just like how you have done it, is there a way for us to balance our time and be like you?
No, thanks, Toby. I think the main thing, and that's why I actually put it there in my biography, I think one of the key things that we need to understand and need to realize is that you need to be well balanced in terms of work and life. Before the pandemic, COVID, everyone talked about now having a nice life-work balance, but I think only in this time that we realize what does that mean. It actually means stopping work at a certain time, spending time with your family, pursuing your other interests. I put there the reading. For me, it is extremely important after a day of hard work, just to sit on the couch, even if it's for half an hour, just to chill and read something, just to get your mind totally away from your work, because it can be tough, especially in an environment where you work with global teams. In the morning, you get early messages from the Singapore office. Tonight, you get messages from Brazil. You tend to only work. But I think that's also been one of my successes in life, to say, no. At a certain time, I stop working and spend time, even if it's just with myself to recharge or with my family.
Thank you very much for that. So, reading your bio, we learned that you travel a lot and you have a travel experience. So, what country are you based currently, and where are you working from? I would like to know.
Okay, I'm currently working from South Africa. I'm based in Pretoria, Centurion, for those of you who know South Africa and the country very well. That's where the Kumba Iron Ore head office is based, in Centurion. So we also have a head office in Johannesburg, in Rosebank, but I'm currently sitting here. But to tell you the truth, for the last 2 years, I've only been to the office twice.
Wow.
And that was the week before last and last week as well. So I'm working mostly from home at the moment.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting because as mining engineers, we normally believe we can work from home. We would always have to be in the office.
Exactly. And I think that is true to some extent, and it also depends on the role that you play. Early on in your career, it's hands-on. It's in the plant, in the mine, going underground. So obviously that's a little bit different. But yeah, depending on the role you have, for now, I can do my work effectively from home, so it works out perfectly.
Great. So for listeners who are possibly pursuing towards a degree, either in mining or related to minerals or not, if you can remember, what was studying like for you some 32 years ago?
It's a long time ago, but look, for me, first of all, it was a great experience. I come from a small little town in South Africa, a farming community. So getting the opportunity to go to university, and that's only thanks to the bursary I got from ISCO, was an amazing opportunity. But I must say that 4 years, and actually I took 4.5 years to complete my degree. Struggled a bit towards the early parts, It was very challenging, very exciting. You got to learn a lot of new things, exciting things, practical things as well. That's what I really liked. But it was tough. It was really tough to make that step up from high school to university, and I don't think I was properly prepared for that. So it was quite a shock to have 8 hours, 9 hours of class a day, and then work in the evenings, and then trying to fit in a social life as well. But it was very nice. Obviously, it's a totally different era. I mean, in that time, I mean, there wasn't computers really. In my second year, I bought a computer. It ran at 4 megahertz, not even gigahertz, and it had 20 megs hard drive capacity. And I mean, I was the envy of the hostel because I had this thing. So also no cell phones, no internet. So all your studying, if you want to do research, you had to go to the library, take out some books. And also that made it, in one sense, quite difficult, because nowadays, if you want to see how a blast furnace works, for instance, you go onto YouTube, type in, and there's, excuse me, very nice graphics and things that show you exactly how it works. Those days you had to look at the handbook and say, okay, yeah, I think this is how it works. So in that sense, it was a little bit more difficult. But again, we had great lecturers, great professors, so that made it possible to do that.
Beautiful, beautiful. So we also learned from your bio that you have a background in extractive metallurgy. I guess that's what you studied in school, and that's what you started your career in ISCO with. So what is extractive metallurgy in simple terms for us to understand, for those who don't understand what extractive metallurgy is?
To explain it simply is, you've got two types of metallurgy: physical metallurgy and then also extractive. So physical metallurgy is the study of, once you've made a steel product or you casted something, you study the properties, how to make it stronger, more flexible, the steel. Should you add, in the process of steel making, should you add more manganese or molybdenum or chrome or something like that? So, and also, why do metals fail? For instance, so you do all that strength tests, etc. That's the physical part. The extractive part is, how do you get from an ore in the ground to that finished product? So either minerals processing, like iron ore and coal, or extractive hydrometallurgy, where you use leaching and chemical reactions to extract some of the impurities, like the minerals like gold, copper, uranium, all of those things. And then also pyrometallurgy, which is the study of, like, blast furnaces, where high temperatures are required to refine a metal, for instance. So that's in a nutshell.
So in summary, it's a form of studying how a metal is being formed, regardless of the mineral that is used to form the metal. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So for instance, you will start with a geologist telling you there's a lump of rock, and in it is some copper material, and we need to get copper. So that whole process, how you grind, how you oxidize or whatever, how you leach, how you refine the copper, that whole process is metallurgy, extractive.
Okay. So you said you started your career with ISCO, and today ISCO is no more existing. So what companies have you worked with, and what commodities did you work with in those several companies that you work with?
Look, I mainly worked in two commodities, and that is coal mining. So my first job was in coal mining. And then again, when I worked in Sasol mining, I worked in coal. But the rest of my career has been in iron ore. So Iscor was the state-owned company that had a lot of blast furnaces and mines. So all the raw materials that you can use in a blast furnace, they supply. But later on, the company split into the mining assets and the steel assets. So it became first Ispat and later ArcelorMittal South Africa. While the mining was later split into coal and other minerals and iron ore, and then Anglo American took the majority share in the iron ore business. So it's basically one company that developed to form different, with different names and shareholding. But that's the companies that I worked with. So it's basically the Iscor, Kumba, Anglo American, and then Sasol Mining for 3 years.
Okay. So of those two experiences, or for those two companies, I'm sure there are some fascinating experiences you must have had in either companies. So can you recall one very fascinating one throughout your journey?
Look, there's a couple, but I think one of my fondest memories were when I was at CIM, when I came back from Sasol, and I was appointed the chief engineer, and we had our team had this objective of fixing almost this new jig plant that we operated. So in the first year or so, that plant really did not perform well, and we were basically given a year to fix it. And that was a nice challenge because it had a definite end date, a definite goal, and I mean, one of the things that I told the people is myself and my team will focus on this. Don't keep us busy with other things. Not doing lots of small projects. We are going to focus on this, and within a year we'll fix this place. So it was really a steep learning curve because at that time I didn't know much about jig plants, how it operates, what's the thing that makes it work. So for me it was a steep curve, and also for the team that worked with me was extremely steep learning curve. But fortunately, I mean, we had one guy there, he's sort of an expert in beneficiation throughout the world. He was on my team, and I mean, he helped us also immensely to get to that target. So that was very fulfilling to say after a year, listen, this is the goal, we've managed to increase the yield. So that was a great experience.
It's interesting that you said, that is the most fascinating for you, because I realized that from your bio, you said that was the biggest jig plant in the world.
Yes.
Oh, wow. So you said you didn't have so much experience with jig plants. And how were you able to lead a team of 23 people to achieve that in a year? Can we ask, does that mean that we don't need to have a mining degree or mineral degree to get into the mine and work? Just help us understand that.
Look, I think that the leadership, obviously you need to have a technical background to get into that position and to understand the basics of metallurgy. What's the typical levers that you need to change to get a certain technical result. But I must say it was a challenge leading 23 people that's also highly skilled, maybe not so experienced, but highly skilled. So, and just learning, I mean, I had to, fortunately for me, the first thing I said to the plant manager when he gave me that job is, remember, I don't know anything about jigs. So the first month, I'm going to spend all my time learning about jig plants. So what I did is every single day, I went into the office. First thing I did was put on my hard hat, my safety gear, go into the plant, and I would walk that plant up and down, up and down, up and down, until I knew that plant by heart. I knew what impacts other things. But I didn't only do it myself. I took people with me, especially that one guy, Ihu, that I talked about, to let him explain to me. If I didn't understand, I asked him, listen, why is this like that? What will happen if we do this and that? And that really helped. And that gives you some confidence as well to lead the team, to be able to, in the end, say, listen, okay, let's split this team. 3 of you, you tackle this problem. 3 of you, you tackle this. And also the other important thing to say, listen, we as metallurgical engineers, we can't fix this alone. Let's rope in the geologists, the mining engineers. Let them tell us, because if I look at the rock, it might look like a piece of iron ore, but maybe it's not. It might be a shale or some other near density material. So let them explain, listen, if we don't understand what's happening, why it could be something else. So that was the key, to learn a lot myself, and then also to make use of all that resources. I mean, it's not only leading the team, it is getting the team to support me. That's the important thing.
That's a very, very beautiful lesson there. The need for you to understand that you need to work with people to achieve anything. So thank you for that. You stressed on the importance of focusing on that one task to achieve the result in that time frame. And also, somewhere you also mentioned where you had to work in several departments, for instance, at the CIM mine that you talked about earlier. So how do you balance the two? When do you know when to focus on a particular task, and when do you know how to multitask in several operations or departments?
Yeah, look, that sometimes comes almost with your role. I mean, when I started at CIM mine, I mean, I was a junior metallurgist. I had a chief engineer and a senior engineer looking after me and making sure I develop. And the interesting thing about our development there is the moment you start as a young engineer in the plant, you get to work a year of shifts with the plant production people. So you work as an operator and later as a foreman in the plant. And when I had to do this, I was saying, listen, I just came from varsity. I had 2 years experience on a coal mine. Now you want me to work shifts for a year. And I mean, obviously you're not happy with that. You're working weekends and night times, but in the end it was good because when I finished that year, I knew the plant inside out. I knew the personnel, they knew me. So I could go to a production manager and talk to him. He would know who I am, what I've done, etc. But in that stage, I didn't have a lot of say in what I do. So my mentor at that time, he decided, listen, you will do that for a year, and then you do, usually after that year, you do plant optimization projects, and you might get 2 or 3 and working different teams. But that's just to give you experience, exposure, give you some confidence. It's only later in your career, maybe after, say, about 5 years, that I could decide, listen, do I want to go into production? Do I want to continue with my purely technical work? And then you can start applying for positions, or you can ask for, listen, can I maybe act in this position for 6 months just to see, do I like production environment or don't I? Because when you start working as a young engineer, you almost think there's only one path for you. You must be either good in management or you must be good in technical. But how would you know if you never try that? And fortunately for us, the environment was, listen, if you want to try this, let's put you there. And some people worked in production for 6 months and decided, listen, I want to keep on working there. While others say, that's not my natural place to be. So I want to rather be a specialist. So there's no set way, and it will depend on your environment, the company that you're working, and of course what you like and don't like.
Great. So one thing you mentioned was the importance of having a mentor who could guide you properly. So for instance, do we have to wait till when you graduate, or for those students, amongst us, do we have to wait before we graduate before we get a mentor? Or in this period where it's COVID, can we get somebody who can mentor us from outside?
Look, definitely that would be perfect, and you can do it. Definitely, you can. We actually encourage in the company as well to, and in all the companies that I've worked with, to say, listen, you have your supervisor and your manager once removed, so your boss's boss, that you have frequent discussions with about your career. But it's actually good to identify a mentor and to say, listen, please, don't you want to mentor me? I like certain things about what you do, certain skills that resonate with me. So can I please, just spend 1 hour every 3 months with you and just give me some guidance. I'm struggling, or if you're struggling with something, to say, listen, I'm struggling with this thing at work. I'm a bit uncomfortable to discuss it with my boss or my boss's boss. And it doesn't even need to be someone in your field. If you find someone that's great, he's an HR, but he's got a good personality, he's got a good way of motivating people, and you want to learn how to motivate people, tell him, listen, don't you want to be my mentor for 6 months? And that also, I've mentored someone during the first year of the pandemic, again, and it was all virtual. And the nice thing about that, afterwards, I learned a lot, because the questions that I was asking her for some feedback is questions that I started asking myself. Say, yes, this young person is asking me that. Shouldn't I be asking the same questions about my career? So it's always a two-way street. It's a win-win situation. So definitely, I'd say if you can find someone, if you're still at varsity, maybe one of the professors, maybe someone where if you do vacation work and you identify someone. So no, definitely, and people are open to that.
Yeah. So I'm sure a number of our audiences or delegates are not from the mining industry, so they're thinking of how to get into the industry. So do you think mining professionals too are willing to engage with people who don't have a mining background, particularly with mentorship?
Look, I think so, because I think that's also one of the key things. Remember, when you are young and starting a career, or you're still deciding what career to follow, that's one of the most important and most difficult decisions you make, and you make it when you are actually quite young, usually. I've had someone working for me, or working with me, that was not in a technical role at all, and I think he was probably 32 years old, had a family, had children. And one day he came to me and said, listen, I've worked with your team for a while. I think I can study part-time metallurgy. Give me some guidance. And we sat once every month almost for a year to guide him through, should he do this, should he do this, should he study there or there. So in the end, I think the one thing that I've seen with mining professionals, they're just people and they want to help. They're looking for solutions, but they also want to support people. The mining community and the metallurgy community is actually a small community. I mean, even now, I still see and deal with people that started with me 25 years ago at Eastcore. But still, we meet at conferences, and you always want to know, how's it going? What happened to you? And So it's definitely a very open community.
Great. So one thing you've also mentioned is that leadership is quite important, and that's what we've discussed for the past couple of minutes. So what other soft skills do you think is important for people who are trying to pursue a career in mining, or metallurgy, or mineral processing?
Yeah. Look, again, that's quite interesting. When I started my career, I thought leadership is being able to take action, to give orders, to make people do things. But very, very soon I realized that, listen, leadership is not all about that. It's about getting people to walk with you to do certain things and to convince certain things. Now, in some of my roles where I led a team of 23 engineers, I mean, I had a specific role. I was the chief engineer, they were senior engineers, junior engineers. So obviously there comes a little bit of not power, but your position gives you the opportunity to tell people, ask people, please do this for me and that for me. Then later on, you might end up in a completely different role. Like the role I'm in now. I don't have a single person reporting to me. I work all alone. All the work that needs to be done, I have to do it. But my biggest role is to convince other people on the same level as me and even higher up in the organization to do certain things. So I've done my work and I say the best thing for this company is doing that. And that's not necessarily aligned with all the KPIs on the different sites, etc. But you have to convince them. So their leadership is something else. Their leadership is convincing, showing the way, making people understand what you say, doing some work in the background to get people on the same page. So so my advice would be, don't start with leadership is this specific thing. When you do a course, they sometimes ask you for what's your definition of leadership, and then everyone tries to give this nice, according to the textbook answer. And it's sometimes not like that. It's sometimes part of that, but it's also certain skills that you have in yourself, and you have to find out, listen, these skills I'm not so good at. Maybe taking quick decisions. I'm not good with that. And sometimes a leader needs to do that. So you need a leader sometimes to say, listen, guys, we don't have all the time for analysis, but we need to take a decision, and my gut tells me it's this. There we go. You get that kind of leader. Then you have someone else that says, no, listen, let's analyze, let's explain the scenarios, the benefits, the pitfalls. That's a different kind of leadership. So it's a mix of both.
Great. So you just mentioned some very important skills. You said negotiation. You need to convince people, so you need to negotiate with them. You said it's good to know how to convince. Convincing is also important. You said communication is key. You said interpersonal skills. We said when working with people in the background. So yeah, that's quite helpful. Thank you for that. So we learned that you moved to Hong Kong in 2009 to work with the marketing team. How did that happen? And what were you doing with them over there?
Look, when I worked at the mine, I actually had a lot of interaction with our marketing team, because one of the things I believed in, you need to understand the whole value chain. So I tried to, in my career, get a lot of skills or experience, not only to understand the plant, but also to understand the mining part of it, and also to understand where our ore goes and the markets. So we had frequent visits by the marketing team to come and tell us, listen, this is what the market wants. And obviously you have to balance what the market wants and what the resource can deliver. So there I got to know the people, and also a lot of times we would bring our customers from Japan, Korea, China to the mine. And I was the one assigned to take them around and to explain how the mine works. And for me, that was brilliant. I mean, to meet people from different cultures and different places and work, I loved that. So then I also, in 2008, I did quite a big project, an ad hoc project on the mine. But that was directly involved with the mining, the marketing people, specifically for a specific market. And just after that, there was a post advertised. I think the post was in Luxembourg, where one of our offices was. So I applied for it. I was a bit too young for that position, so I didn't get the position. But it was like I was putting my name up to say, if ever there's something, just let me know. And 2 years later, the head of marketing phoned me and said, listen, we've got a job for you in Hong Kong. Are you willing to come? And obviously I said, definitely, I have to do this. And that was a brilliant experience. So that's how I ended up in the marketing team.
It's interesting that when we think of marketing, we think of tech company marketing. We think of consumer goods, like, selling goods. So how does marketing have to work with mining? Because that was fascinating for me when I realized that. So would you mind letting us understand that marketing part and how it comes together with minerals, mining, and metallurgy and all those?
Look, it's actually quite interesting. Like you say, you think of, when you talk mining, marketing, you think of the salesman that's selling second-hand cars, and he just needs to entertain people and smile and take people out to lunch. But it's not the case at all. So marketing iron ore to steel makers is a very technical thing to do. So you would be surprised that I think probably 70 to 80% of everyone working in the iron ore marketing team is engineers, have an engineering background. I mean, our executive head of marketing, he's actually a physicist with a PhD in extractive metallurgy. All the sales managers and the head of sales are engineers. All the technical managers, that is the people that support the sales team, and they also engineers, most of them metallurgical engineers. Because the thing is, iron ore is not always fungible. Now, I don't know if you know the term fungible. It means one size fits all. So if you don't buy this iron ore, you can just buy that iron ore. And it's not the case when you speak to guys running blast furnaces. A blast furnace operator wants a stable feed into the blast furnace, and he buys your ore for a specific reason. And he's not always going to tell you what that reason is. So you must figure it out. For instance, the ore coming from Australia is very high in alumina. The ore coming from South Africa is very low in alumina. So people will buy your ore. You think it's iron ore, it's all about the Fe. It's actually not. It's about fitting into their plan for alumina. But in order to do this, you need to have technical discussions with the people. And they also demand technical information from you. So it's not like, no, you just send them information. When I was in Hong Kong, serving as technical market manager, I visited Japan 35 times.
Wow.
For technical discussions with the 4 biggest steel mills in Japan. The same with Korea. I went there probably 15 times. I went to China a lot, to India, Taiwan, you name it. But it was, 2 trips a month at least. So it's hectic, but it's technical, and you need to know exactly what's happening on the mine to translate that into something that they can understand, and also to show them the value that your ore can have in their process. So, no, it's completely different than just salesman.
Great. So thank you for the explanation. It was quite explanatory. So is this the transition from you being a technical person, even though you said it was technical, to being a business, being in the business unit of the organization?
Look, it was sort of a transition, because that was a role when you really have to understand the whole business, because a decision that you make on the marketing side might impact the mine. And that could have a major impact on the value of the mine, etc. But again, as I said, even though I was in that structure, most of my work was technical work. It was 80% technical. You have to understand the business part of it. But to tell you the truth, I think when I joined marketing, I actually became more specialized in certain technical aspects. Which was actually great, because that's my comfort zone. My comfort zone is strong technical, and not so much just the business part of things.
Great. So, is that what you're doing currently now with Kumba Iron? Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. So 20 years on, if you had a chance to pick a career again, would you still pick the same career?
That's a very interesting question. Look, obviously you think, there's so many other careers now available that we never knew about. I mean, when I started or went to university, you could become a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor, or an engineer, or maybe something else. But nowadays, there's so many interesting other things. But I do think in the end, I will choose this one again. Because again, my set of skills, and I think I listed it there, my talents or my skills, that was after I did a course recently to identify those things. And my most important skill is analytical. I want to know more. I want to analyze things, understand how it works. So that actually satisfies me. You won't believe it, but sometimes I sit with a difficult model or something that I need to figure out, and I work on Excel for days and use simulation models. But at the end of the day, when I'm so tired, but I finish that, I actually smile and think this has been one of the best days ever. Just me and my computer. So that kind of satisfaction actually tells me that yes, I've made the right choice.
So is that the reason why you went ahead to pursue a degree in law, even up to a master's level?
Yeah, look,
specific.
The law thing, I did my MBA. I finished my MBA in 2003. And then we had 2 law subjects, and it was amazing. It was so interesting. And by that time, I started thinking about, listen, maybe one day I'll get to go to marketing and Hong Kong and the business. So maybe law would be a good background to have. And then I thought about doing a short course in law. But then I thought, why just do the short course? You have time. I mean, I was sitting on a small mine in the Northern Cape. Why not go for an LLB? See how it goes. You've got nothing to lose. So do the hard work. And it was, again, 4.5 years of very hard studies. So I did that. I thought for a moment maybe I could become a patent lawyer or so. But then I remembered I'm not the biggest natural speaker. So maybe law, I shouldn't pursue that career. So then I did that. When I finished that, I said, well, okay, now I've got nothing else to do. My wife was actually pursuing her PhD at that moment. So, and I mean, she was working full time and studying in the evenings, and you can only watch so much TV. So I said, well, let's just go another step and do the LLM. And again, law is so interesting. And the nice thing about law, you can actually lie on the couch with your book and read it. It's not you have to sit the whole time and make notes. So it's very interesting, and it captures you when you start doing.
Great. So if you have a question, or if you're considering asking Peru a question, please note them down. We would give you some minutes to ask your question. So your thesis was around these emerging technologies, which is artificial intelligence. So are you seeing a space for that in mining or in metallurgy or in mineral processing? Are you seeing a space for that? And what space are you seeing? Or have you started implementing it in your operations yet?
Look, definitely. I think artificial intelligence in its various forms definitely has a place, not only in the mining industry, but I mean, it's in everyday life. So it will definitely permeate into the mining industry, and we have seen it. I mean, we've got systems like that doing optimization of truck and shovel movements in the mine. So doing real-time optimization. And I mean, we've had that 20 years ago, but now it's on a different level. It is really optimizing. Secondly, in the plants are not only controlled by humans, and we've got PLCs, but the PLC still needs to be controlled by humans. We've now progressed into systems where you do process automation, where you give the plant a target to optimize, say, for instance, ore sizing or something like that. And that will continuously adjust stockpile levels, crusher settings, the amount of screen bypass. So that is definitely something that's happening. And we see a lot of that. And I think there will be a lot of that in the future mining industry. Well, they talk about smart mining, and that's exactly what it's all about.
Great. Thank you for that. And the last question of the day, if you had if there's someone listening to us now and the person wants to be the next Peru, what is that word you give to them, or what's that sentence you let them know, or what will you tell them to do?
I think for me, the thing that worked is to be inquisitive. Don't just understand your area where you work. Try and reach out, be inquisitive about other processes. So, for instance, for me, it helped to understand the mining process better, because then it helps me in my processes. It helps to understand the marketing environment. So that is the one thing. The second thing that I found is, don't have a set path in your head. This is, I'm going to be a junior engineer, then a senior engineer, then a chief engineer, then a plant manager, then a GM. It might work out that way, but I mean, there's only one GM on a mine, and there's 60 engineers starting the journey. So be flexible, take some risks, especially at the start of your career. Explore different things. And if it doesn't work for you, be realistic enough to say, this is not me. You will feel uncomfortable. Sometimes you uncomfortable is good for growing. But sometimes it's also, I mean, I realized early in my career that production is not for me. It's a great experience. Yes, you've got lots of people working for you, and you must motivate that team, but it actually put a lot of stress on me. especially nowadays with all the safety requirements and those kind of things. So it takes a lot out of your personal life as well. I mean, people phoning you at night, you must always be ready. So I quickly realized this is not for me, even though this is the path to become a GM or something.
Yes.
My role and my skills and the things that I like is more in the technical. So become a specialist. And that's my third and last piece of advice, is become the expert on something. Be the go-to guy in your organization. I mean, if someone wants to do something on truck optimization on a mine, for instance, in the mining environment, be that guy. Understand every single thing. It won't happen overnight. It will take you a while. And then you've got to establish yourself as being that person. And that's quite difficult because you must promote yourself. And sometimes our engineers are not good at promoting ourselves. But you have to do it. And one way of doing it is showing the facts. Showing, hey, I've looked at everything. This is the best solution. So those three things I'd say is if you do that, and then also be true to yourself. Not everyone has got the same skills. Not everyone has got the same goals. And you don't have to fix yourself in a certain skill set. I mean, I'm in this environment now for 32 years or 27 years of working. I've changed many times. I've learned many new skills, and that's taught me, hey, I actually like this more than something else that I did. So don't be boxed in. Think outside the box. Take those chances, and then you'll succeed definitely.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for that, expository section. And I'm sure a lot of people have learned from that. So if you have a question, you can just react by either typing in the chat box or by raising your hand, and we'll let you speak. Okay, we've got one from Gabriel. Gabriel, please unmute your mic and please speak. Hi, Gabriel, please speak. Hi. Okay, we can't hear you speak. Maybe you just type into the chat box. We can't hear you. Okay, all right. Any other question? Any other comments? Okay, none for now. All right, thank you very much. And on that note, we'll round up this session. Okay, we've got one. Is it advisable to be changing organizations if you really want to get to the top? And that's from Daniel.
Look, Daniel, what I'd say is definitely. There's almost no rule nowadays that you can stay in one organization and start from the bottom and go all the way to the top. Obviously, it is possible. But what we've seen also through the years is that most mining companies has got this policy almost. If you become the plant manager, or say you become the chief engineer, then maybe they don't promote you to the plant manager in that same mine. They would appoint you as plant manager in another mine. So just to take you a little bit out of your comfort zone. And then you might go on from that plant manager, you might become the manager of metallurgy for the group. And then suddenly, when you've got that skills and more executive skills, then they will bring you back as a GM or a more senior level. So it's definitely leaving the organization. I think when we were small, our parents still thought, no, you start a job and you end the job with the same organization. Nowadays, it's not like that. People will not frown on you having moved, as long as you can show progression in why you did certain things. I think getting outside experience is a very, very valuable thing to do.
Okay, we've got one from Gabriel. It says, what advice do you have for a junior engineer who has low decision-making skills?
That's a very good question. But yeah, I think the thing is, first of all, to realize that, yes, I'm battling with making decisions. Then secondly, go and do something, do a course on decision-making skills. I mean, there are some tools that you can use, models that you can apply to help you make certain decisions. And thirdly, just try and take that leap, especially when you are a junior engineer. I remember someone telling me many years ago that if you want to make a mistake, make it in your first couple of years on the mine, because then it should be a relative small mistake. You still have supervisors that guide you, that check your work, that give their opinion as well. But it's important to put your opinion out there, make a decision, and invite comments. I think inviting comments from your team and your manager is one of the critical skills that we must learn. We are afraid of failing or doing something wrong, but really do that, ask the questions and show your data on why you took a certain decision. I mean, I've made wrong decisions in my life, but that was based on a certain amount of information, on a certain mindset maybe, but rather do it early. If you do it later on, it might be a little bit more of an impact. But yeah, take that chance and yeah, as long as you can motivate the decision, it can never be almost wrong.
So we have another one from, sir, I would like to know, how did you manage to handle the heat and pressure from the metallurgicals? Because wow, and when you get to a mine or a certain plant, what are the requirements you're expected to attain or to have?
Look, I must say, as I said at the start, the metallurgy course was a bit tough, and especially in my first year or two, I struggled a little bit. I'd be the first to admit I failed a few subjects, but the thing that I realized, and I think my attitude towards the course was also a little bit wrong, because at school I did well and it didn't take a lot of effort. So I thought, no, just going to university and doing this, just do the same. And it actually doesn't work like that. What I realized is if you pay close attention in class, if you really give everything while you are in class, then it becomes so much easier. Then you don't have to do that much afterwards or in the evenings. One of my greatest experiences was sitting in a fourth year pyrometallurgy class. Corrosion. We did corrosion engineering. And it was sort of the third week of the term, and I didn't understand a thing that the lecturer was teaching us. It did not make sense. And the lecturer actually asked us, listen, is there someone who doesn't understand what I'm doing here? And I put up my hand. I was afraid to do it, but I put up my hand. And I remember that guy walked all the way to my seat. He asked the other guys to move away, and he sat down next to me. And he said, okay, let's tackle this problem. Tell me, what do you think will happen from this anode to this cathode and whatever? What will happen? And I explained to him, and he said, no, that's not completely right. This is how it works. And he spent probably 25 minutes with me in class explaining that. And I clicked. I just clicked how this thing works. And from there on, it was plain sailing. That subject was one of my best subjects in the end. So don't be afraid. But yeah, it is tough. It is tough. I remember we had 40 periods per week. That was the official number, the maximum number that we did at university, and we had all 40 of them. And we sometimes had practicals on a Saturday. So, but yeah, when you work hard, but also then play hard, just to get rid of that stress.
Yeah, so we have 2 more questions, and I will take it together so you can answer. So we have somebody who is currently a civil engineering student who says, is there space for me in the mining industry? That's the first question. And the second question is, electrical engineers trying to apply for work, what can I do to fine-tune my search and my applications?
Okay. Let me say, first of all, for a civil engineer, definitely there's work in the mining industry. I mean, we constantly construct new plants, new crushers. I mean, that must be on structures. There's roads to be built. There's conveyor systems and plants to be built. That all needs to be signed off and designed by civil engineers. So definitely, then you think of dewatering systems or plant water systems, runoff systems, all of that needs the help of a civil engineer. So we've got a few civil engineers employed in our company. So definitely there's work there. Just on the electrical engineering, look, that's a very difficult question, because nowadays, I mean, we see, it also depends on where you are. But I mean, in South Africa, for instance, we see a lot of young engineers qualifying and not being able to get a job. What I'd recommend doing is that you start doing some freelance work. Even if you start doing work for free, contact an organization, tell them, listen, you're willing to work for free, so you can get some experience on your CV. The thing is, what we usually do is, when we appoint people, we assume that someone with a technical degree has got the technical skills. Then it's a question of how do you fit into the organization. So focus a lot on your personal skills as well, not only the technical, because the technical almost gives you that tick to say you can do the work, but are you a good fit for the organization? So elaborate a little bit on what your skills are, your strengths, what you can bring to the organization. And even things that you didn't do in that environment that shows that you are a leader, or that shows that you are willing to do the work. If you have that in your CV, and make it visible, that must always be the second thing that recruiters see, that you're willing to do the work and you're committed.
Great. So thank you. And that's the end of the question and answer session. It was a very good one. And thank you for everyone that asked the question. It was very nice to have answered it. Thank you very much, Peru, for being a part of this conversation with us. And thank you for also shedding more light on your experience. And the 32 years of experience you've had has been amazing. And on that note, we'll move on to the next session, where we'll be sharing about a career roadmap for those who want to pursue a career in mining.